Sometimes all a deck needs is that one piece, but finding the perfect card for your commander deck can be difficult. So in this guide, I will tell you what tools I use and how I use them to find the perfect card for a deck. But before I tell you about finding the one piece, if you like my videos, consider subscribing and checking out the Patreon. Thanks. So in my last video, I talked about net decking, and there were a lot of people who agreed, but some who I think took it a bit far. I do appreciate those who said that they don't look up any cards ever, or they refuse to use EDHREC. If you're having fun, then that's totally fine. But it's not really what I was trying to convey. I use EDHREC and Scryfall all the time when building decks. But if you don't want to fall into the net decking pitfalls that I talked about in the previous video, it's important to know how to use these tools. I want to talk about a recent example where I was helping a patron with a deck idea that they had. So this is how that deck was brewed up. They originally told me about an idea to use Throne of the God Pharaoh and spells that create tapped 2/2 zombies to power up the throne. So we have the idea for the deck, but what cards actually work here? Off the top of my head, I recalled the card Army of the Damned. This makes a lot of 2/2 tapped zombies, which is perfect to work in tandem with the throne. So I went to Scryfall and I searched for the Oracle text, create tapped zombies, and that works, sort of. We get 28 cards, but some that are not legal in EDH. Luckily, Scryfall lets us refine the search. We can filter for cards just legal in Commander, or sort by EDHREC rank, which usually puts all the banned cards towards the bottom. Okay, so now we have a pile of cards that makes tapped zombies. So who's the commander? Well, now I would go to EDHREC and search up Army of the Damned to see what commanders people play with it. And my patron decided on Scarab God to double up the life loss from the zombies. Then, on EDHREC, we can go to the Scarab God's page and filter for decks that play Army of the Damned and also Throne of the God Pharaoh. And in these decks, we can see people playing various utility creatures that have tap abilities, which can work well in this type of deck, allowing us to tap creatures without having to attack to get more value. And this is a good direction to take the deck. So now let's take note of what we have. We got a commander, things that make tapped zombies, some drain effects, and utility tap creatures. Now what? So part of the deck can be filled with some zombie tribal stuff. All of this will work well with the zombie tokens. But we can go even deeper. This is where if you want your deck to not look and feel like everyone else's Scarab God deck, you might start looking at other ways to branch off and sub-themes to add to mix up your deck. Let's go back to the original idea. What is the problem with the card Throne of the God Pharaoh? We need to have tapped creatures. So you might assume we need to attack for this to work. And if we attack all out, then that leaves us with no defenses. So to not die on the crackback after attacking with our tokens, Pillow Fort effects might be a good addition. This is another place where EDHREC is an excellent tool. We can go to Themes, find Pillow Fort, and select something within the colors. Even though this deck is Dimir, Esper is close enough to find other cards. And then we can find Pillow Fort cards that work well in the deck. But that's only one idea. So if we attack with all of our creatures, they're all tapped, we have no blockers, right? If I search up untap all into Scryfall, specifically filtering for Dimir color identity, we can find cards like Intruder Alarm and Faces of the Past. With Intruder Alarm, we can use the Scarab God to instant speed untap our whole team. Or with Faces of the Past, one sack outlet can also untap all your zombies, or tap them without having to attack. And that got me thinking, what are other ways to tap your creatures without having to attack? Remember when I said tapping involved attacking? Well, it's not true. Something like a vehicle will allow you to tap your entire board if you wanted. If you don't know, you can overcrew with vehicles, so even if it's crew 1, you can cram as many zombies in there as you want. And using these tools, we can either search up every vehicle in our color identity, or look at Dimir vehicle decks on EDHREC and find some options. Then I got a Discord ping, and they suggested complete the circuit. And I was thinking to myself, how could I have forgotten about Convoke? Not only is this another way to get value out of tapping these tokens without attacking, but complete the circuit copies a spell twice. And copying Army of the Damned 2 times, making 39 tapped zombies, and then destroying the table by hitting them for 39 with Throne is the perfect way to win with this deck. And this can lead us down a whole separate rabbit hole of making a spell slinger or spell copy deck. You can build around copying big make tapped zombie spells and use that as your engine. Now let's focus back. What do we have here? We have many themes: zombie tribal, spell copy, vehicles, and pillow fort. These are the ideas that got brainstormed up. All that's left is to pick which ones seem like the most fun to you and flesh out the deck with some removal, card draw, and ramp. And this is ultimately how I find the right card for any deck, bouncing back and forth between Scryfall and EDH Rec, going down different paths, looking for new avenues and synergies. And this will usually create more synergistic and well thought out decks than just taking the top synergy cards from EDH Rec. And that last step about adding removal, card draw, and ramp is the most important step. I feel like people focus really hard on grabbing the high synergy and top cards from EDH Rec, which in this case only includes one piece of removal. You really want to make sure you're not skimping out on those crucial elements of deck building. Sometimes people get a little too lost in the sauce and just focus on their theme without thinking about the times that they will be behind and need a board wipe, or the time when they need to deal with a hate card like Rest in Peace. And this whole deck idea, this whole deck building process just stemmed from one statement. I want to build a deck with throne and tapped zombie tokens. And I think if you start like that, follow these rabbit holes, try to think outside the box with what you want the deck to do, I promise it'll be more fun and engaging than just building a generic zombie tribal deck or the most simple version of whatever you were trying to build. And that's what I really like to encourage on this channel, just thinking outside the box and building fun decks. Linked in the description below is the current draft of the deck. It still needs some tweaking and a little bit of tuning, but you can see the ideas that are there. Let me know what you think of the deck list in the comments below. But if you think that this method is too convoluted or not very good, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you so very much for watching the video. And hey, if you want some deck building advice, check out my Patreon and check out the Patreon Discord server.